Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. As you can tell from the title down there, I'm continuing my trek through the episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond, one episode at a time. And in this episode, we are dealing with The Shower, number 21 of Season 7. This, like I said at the end of the last episode, is the DUI episode involving Debra. This one is written by Leslie Cavanagh, which this was the first episode she worked on as a writer, and this is around the time where she started with the show both as a writer and as a consulting producer on several episodes. Other episodes in the future she's going to work on are Blabbermouth, The Model from next season, and then of course Tasteless Frank from season 9, which is one of the few episodes from that season I remember off the top of my head. So now that should be interesting. We got guest stars. We got Joel Brooks as Mr. Ruddle of the DMV, who, of course, was in an episode of Deep Space Nine where he played Farlow. And if that name doesn't sound familiar, those of you who have watched Deep Space Nine will probably remember this infamously. Anna Marie, Anna Marie. Yep. He was in the infamous Move Along Home episode from Season 1 of Deep Space Nine. Oh, yeah. And then looking at it, I'm like, oh, yeah, it is him. I was trying to piece it because while watching this episode, I'm like, his voice sounds familiar, but I can't really place it. And then we got the late Billy Mayo as the DUI cop, and it seems like he made a career out of playing these type of characters. He played an agent in Clock Stoppers, he played a cop in The Green Hornet, and he played a pilot in A Perfect Storm. And he passed away in 2019, although a cause of death apparently has never been released, at least according to IMDb. Now, the plot is that as the maid of honor, or which I don't know why they didn't use that one. They're trying to go with matron, but Debra doesn't like using the phrase. It is Debra's job to throw Amy the bridal shower. And they're doing it at Amy's apartment, and a lot of people are there, a lot of friends that are unnamed are there. Judy, Robert's partner's there, she's having fun. Amy's mother's there, and she's doing her little, I guess the wedding's really moving forward. Oh, her little shtick. And of course, Debra's doing her best to make the party flow. But then Marie's doing her usual thing to ruin it, bring in the appetizers, which in real life, in a relationship like this between Debra and Marie, we all know that the person throwing it would probably take no crap and throw the stuff out. But you gotta have some stuff for comedy. Debra trying to really put in the punch like, I don't need you, but Marie's doing her usual typical stuff like, oh yeah, I did in case people wanted to eat. Which leads to a little funny moment involving Judy, which I'm not going to spoil here, but it's one of my favorite little moments like that in the episode where I'm like, oh my god. And what really sells it is the look that Patricia Heaton puts on her face in character. Now, near the end of it, Debra does put her foot down, I don't need you, which causes Marie to leave in her typical passive-aggressive way, which of course causes Debra to feel bad, and then she starts drinking more than she should. And even though she leaves to go home, she realizes that she's behind the wheel like, you know, I overdid it, and I don't think I should be driving. So she calls Ray. Ray doesn't answer. She leaves a message and says, come pick me up. And the reason for that is that Amy's driving her mother back. She's already out in the car, so obviously Amy's not there. All the other people left, so her only other option would be a cab, which they do address later. If she did do it, Marie would see and she'd never hear the end of it, which is true. Now, this leads into the part that I kind of foreshadowed at the end of the last episode about the law ranting. Raw ranting. Or she has the car on, but she's only operating the air conditioning and the radio, and she falls asleep. Cop shows up, asks if she's all right, because, you drive in on patrol, middle of the night, probably early morning, you see a lady in the front seat of a car, you want to at least do a safe check, make sure she's all right. And she says she had too much to drink, and then the cop arrests her and takes her to jail. And at that point, Ray finally answers the phone and finds out she's in jail. So she gets someone to watch the kids and goes and picks her up, in which Debra really does not like it. And Debra's whole argument to the cop there brings in one of the points I'm going to bring up here, is like, driving under the influence. How could it be driving if there's no D? True. Which I think some places it's operating a vehicle under the license, which I think that really pushes it. Because with this, I'm just going to get all my thing out right now. The way I look at it, if you are not actually driving the vehicle, regardless of whether it's under the influence of alcohol or not, they should not be able to arrest and charge you for driving or operating a vehicle under the influence. If all you're doing is operating the AC, listening to the radio while waiting for a sober driver, they should not be able to arrest you. Even if all they're saying, well, we suspect he's going to drive. Suspicion, last I checked, is not a crime. So suspect he's going to, you just tell him, like I could tell you in my line of work, we just tell him, if you do drive, we will notify law enforcement. But like say law enforcement thing is like, all right, if you do drive, you will be pulled over. If all they're doing is sitting there and they're doing the responsible thing and waiting for a sober party, I mean, if you want to stay with them for a little bit, or you'd be like, how long have you been waiting? I could always give you a drive home. That would be a lot better instead of wasting both your time, the department's time, and the prosecutor's time, and arresting them and taking them to jail. Now, for comedy's sake, it works for this episode, but that's just my thought on that thing. But if you look at it at different levels of law enforcement, local cops, sheriff's thing, we all know the reason why they would do that. Generates a little bit more revenue. And it's not like when you're driving on your phone and you're not operating in a way that the penal code says you're supposed to. This is one where you're really going at it. This is like if you're driving only 2 to 3 miles over the speed limit and you get pulled over. So it's one of those ones where like really? But in that situation, it's a little bit more, it's annoying, but it's a little more cut and dry. This one, it's like, really? Shouldn't be taken to that extreme. Now, because of the circumstances, the arresting officer does drop the charges against Debra, but then she has to go back and deal with the headaches, hassles, and horse crap of her license getting reinstated. Because, at least in the world of the episode, and I'm guessing probably also under New York state law at that time, if you were arrested for DUI, your license automatically got suspended. Which I kind of get, but I think that it should only be an automatic thing if you are actually taken to trial and convicted. Just for the arrest, no. Then again, there's also states where you can be arrested for refusing to do the breathalyzer and submit to the blood screening, and also for your license can be suspended for other stupid stuff. So it's one of those things like, yeah. Now, I'm jumping a little ahead of time because before we get to that part where Ray is talking with Debra at the station trying to figure out what the heck happened and lead to some little funny jail little jokes, we get the best one out of it where we see Robert. He's still on duty. He's walking with another officer. They're like, yeah, I'm going to do another couple hours and clock out. And he sees them, but he doesn't acknowledge it. At first he's like, hey Ray, hey Debra. Then he finally acknowledges, like, wait. And he looks, sees that it's Ray talking to Debra, and Debra's in the cell, and he's like, oh my God, she finally killed Ma. Just the way he says it, it's like, oh my God, that is the best joke they could have written for this situation. It's obvious, but it's the best, and it still gets a good laugh out of me, and it got a good laugh out of the studio audience. Well, when we get back home, we see what's going on. It's like everybody knows that she was arrested, but they don't want to talk about it. Of course, when Marie finds out, she's like, oh my God. And of course, she starts jumping to the thing, oh, she's an alcoholic, which of course goes to her grabbing the vodka that's in the fridge and pouring it down the drain. Oh, Ma, she's not an alcoholic. You don't have to lie for her anymore, dear. It's like, wow. Now, we see that she does drink a lot, and they have jokes about, like, what we're going to see in the future, like, where do you keep your after Marie liquor? But at the most, I would say they're probably functioning alcoholics, but not like to the point where they're endangering anybody. And that's really pushing it at the most. But of course, we all know how Marie is. She's the type of person that would do that. Well, we get to the hearing. The cop's there. Joe Brooks' character, Mr. Roddle, is there. Of course, we've got someone typing. There's a hearing. Of course, Robert is there. Be there for family and all that. Of course, and that's the moment with him and the cop. Him getting his chops busted. And the hearing goes about as well as you would expect for these characters where, Deborah's trying to justify stuff. The guy's trying to go by the books at a point. But then Marie interjects. And this interjection does help her a lot. Because then Brooks is like, I understand your whole thing. Now I see you did have intent to nap. Leads to a whole little thing there. Of course, he does bring up there are cabs, which is true. That's a responsible way, but what if you don't have the money for a cab? Which I know someone's going to go, well, if you don't have money for a cab, you don't have money to drink. True. Let's say you spend it all on booze. Let's say that there's not one available, like where you're going from where you're at. The taxi service doesn't offer it, or is way too expensive than it should be. You don't have a phone, so you can't get an Uber. There's a lot of stuff like that nowadays, but you're way out in the middle of nowhere where they don't go. Stuff like that. I mean, it's in New York, so they got that one coming up for Slim, but when you go to the thing where you're responsibly waiting for your thing, no. Which is why I'm glad in the context of the episode that he does restore Debra's license fully. Leads to a decent little Marie and Debra moment, but I think there are others in the show before, and I think a couple after that are stronger. That's like, yeah, nah. And of course, leads to the whole thing like, good luck who's ever marrying into this. Now, the epilogue is that they're eating a dessert. It's a chocolate one. They're all enjoying it. And of course, you know, Marie's mentioning what she put in there, and she mentions that there's like a dash of rum in there, and then Debra's going for another bite. She's like, no! Tried to get her hand away just because there's alcohol in it, ignoring the fact that any of the alcohol should have been cooked out if she actually did cook it. And it causes it to get knocked on to Debra's outfit. So, perfect way to do an epilogue for this episode, and I have to applaud it. And Leslie, she did a pretty good job here. I mean, even though she's new to the show, she got the essence of the characters right, gave us a good situation, nice little filler-esque episode that still kind of touches on some of the wedding beats. I mean, the whole thing with the wedding shower is a subplot in the grander scheme of things, and basically a nice little setting dress for the first act of the episode, but it's also where the thing that sets the rest of the episode in motion accrues at, so nice little thing there. Now, the next episode we're going to be talking about is going to be another big wedding one. And it also was one that got some Emmy love for Tucker Collie. And we're going to talk about that when we get to it. And of course, that's going to be Baggage. And the fun thing about that is that we're finally going to get a little bit of lore history on something we've always seen in Frank and Marie's kitchen, but other than noting it in the background, they've never really addressed it. And that, of course, is the big fork and spoon. Till next time, guys.